Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a really huge pleasure to open Market Forces Nuclear New Build Forum today. As you will all know, we face a number of very important challenges in the energy sector over the coming years. And it's not just dealing with decades of underinvestment, but of course, it's also meeting our energy trilemma of keeping the lights on, keeping the bills down, and all whilst addressing our world-leading decarbonisation targets. And so your industry, the nuclear industry, has a huge part to play in enabling us to meet those challenges. Since the start of the year, you might have noticed nuclear has never been far from the headlines. Both government and the nuclear industry have faced question after question about our plans for expansion. And to be perfectly honest with you, I genuinely welcome those questions. I think it's healthy that projects on the scale of those proposed for nuclear new build should come under close public scrutiny. One of the reasons I welcome questions about our new build programme is because it gives me the opportunity to restate again and again why we believe new nuclear is so important for the UK. It gives us the chance to explain that Hinkley Point C is a very good deal for energy consumers in the UK, and it gives us the opportunity to say what we're doing to enable other new nuclear power stations to be built, for example at Wilfer in Anglesey and at Moorside in Cumbria, and others besides. So the case for new nuclear. Well, it does have a crucial role to play as the UK makes the transition to a low-carbon economy. To make our transition a success, we have to completely decarbonise the power sector, and we need nuclear to be able to do that. Why? Because nuclear is the only proven technology that can be deployed on a sufficiently large scale to provide continuous low-carbon power. Our own analysis tells us that decarbonisation of the power sector can be achieved most cheaply, most securely and most reliably if nuclear remains a core part of the UK's energy system. And it's also clear that security of supply is far more likely if we have a good diversity of supply. So whether we're considering the number of different suppliers of gas, or in this case, the number of technologies we rely on for our power, avoiding over-reliance on a small number of sources is absolutely vital. Now, existing nuclear plants currently meet between 16 and 20% of our electricity needs, but without nuclear new build, the share of generation from nuclear could dip to as little as 3% by 2030. This would enormously reduce the diversity of our energy supplies and would almost certainly make achieving our goals to cut the UK's greenhouse gas emissions far more challenging and far more expensive. So pursuing new nuclear is the clear and right choice for the government. But there are other considerations too. Britain is a world leader in civil nuclear through our skills base, our infrastructure and regulatory regime. And making nuclear projects happen can keep Britain at the forefront of nuclear development, generating more skilled employment, building the UK supply chain, and of course, creating global export opportunities. So turning to Hinkley briefly, good progress is being made at Hinkley. I was delighted to see for myself the progress being made at the site at the end of last year. It was amazing to see the level of enthusiasm and the hard work that's already going on there. EDF and the French government have confirmed that EDF are working towards a final investment decision in the near future with the full support of the French government, and I'm sure EDF will be giving you a further update on that later today. Hinkley C is expected to be up and running in 2025 and will provide 3.2 gigawatts of secure baseload and low-carbon electricity, meeting 7% of the UK's electricity needs. That's enough to power 6 million homes, twice as many as the whole of London. Hinkley will provide an enormous boost to both the local and national economy, 25,000 jobs during construction, 1,000 apprenticeships, 900 permanent staff once it's up and running, £40 million a year to the local economy. These are great numbers. Hinkley really will make a difference. And then lots of people ask, is Hinkley a good deal for consumers? Well, I believe it is. We've made sure that consumers won't pay anything for electricity until the plant is generating, so the risks during construction remain with the developer. If profits prove to be higher than expected, a proportion will be shared with consumers. If the project comes in under budget, savings will be shared with consumers again. But if there are overspends, then the developer bears the additional costs. This is a good deal for UK consumers. But Hinkley C is, of course, only the first in a series of proposed new nuclear projects in the pipeline. It will blaze a trail for further nuclear development. Industry has already set out proposals to develop 18 gigawatts of new nuclear power in the UK at 6 sites: Hinkley Point, Sizewell, Bradwell, Moorside, Wilver and Oldbury. This pipeline could deliver around a third of the electricity we'll need in the 2030s, reducing our carbon emissions by more than 40 million tonnes, bringing an estimated £80 billion of investment into the UK and employing up to 30,000 people across the new nuclear supply chain at the peak of construction. So there's also massive potential for UK suppliers from the new nuclear programme in the UK, and it's a top priority for me personally that the UK supply chain is given the opportunity to compete for high-value contracts throughout the sector. So we're working closely with industry to create an environment that will have several benefits. First, by developing an open and transparent approach to the supply chain. The government is clear that we want the developers of new nuclear plant to share supply chain information with UK industry early so that companies can prepare themselves for the opportunity and line themselves up to bid for contracts. Second, by maximising UK content in Hinkley Point C and future new nuclear plant. EDF has estimated that more than 60% of Hinkley C's construction cost will be placed with UK firms. We want to match or better this percentage for all new nuclear build in the UK. Third, through new trade partnerships. We believe UK expertise can help deliver nuclear projects in other countries, whether that's in the home countries of those proposing to build plant in the UK or in third markets besides. And finally, by developing sustainable content. Huge value comes from long-term contracts, and I want to see our UK companies playing the long game, developing competitive investment strategies that will lead to a healthy and enduring nuclear skills base in the UK. So the Nuclear Industry Association has a very valuable role to support our supply chain, for example, by leading the way in creating the demand model, which will identify the UK nuclear industry's capability and capacity for new nuclear. The model will help companies understand where there are opportunities and match them to those opportunities. And there's help for companies elsewhere too. The Nuclear Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre is not only the UK Centre of Excellence for Research into Advanced Manufacturing, but it also supports the UK nuclear industry with its Fit for Nuclear programme, which is readying UK businesses for new build. And a thriving supply chain needs a thriving skills base. A skilled workforce will be essential to build new nuclear plant on time and on budget, and to maximise the opportunities for the UK supply chain. I was delighted to meet some of the new apprentices on my visit to EDF's Cannington Court at the end of last year. But the scale of the industry's new build aspirations, the length of time since the last new build project, and let's face it, the high average age of the existing nuclear workforce, means that it's essential to take action now to prevent skills gaps appearing during the course of the new nuclear programme. 70% of highly skilled workers in the nuclear sector are due to retire by 2025. The most recent nuclear workforce assessment suggests the total current demand for skilled nuclear workers is about 78,000. This is expected to rise to around 111,000 as both the civil and defence new build programmes gather pace. This is a challenge for industry and for government to tackle in partnership. The Nuclear Skills Strategy Group brings this partnership to life. The NSSG is the UK's lead strategic skills forum for the sector, and it will be accountable for developing a national nuclear skills strategy. The group will address skills, infrastructure, processes, and training provision. In addressing the skills challenge, the NSSG will also continue to develop the pool of existing skills across the nuclear sector and will also consider the transferability of skills from other sectors in the energy space and in other industries, something which I believe is crucial to sustaining the new nuclear sector. So to support these efforts, last year the Chancellor confirmed funding to create 5 national colleges. Amongst them was the National College for Nuclear. The college will work collaboratively with the wider industry, with skills bodies and training providers, and will look at international best practice to develop an industry-wide curriculum. It will start off with 2 campuses in Cumbria and the Southwest, and it will use the best colleges, universities, and trading providers nationally to help deliver its objectives. BIS have now completed the due diligence process and are preparing the final grant offer letter, so more on that very soon. But looking further ahead, alternative nuclear technologies could offer exciting opportunities that could also help us to meet our energy and climate change challenges, as well as developing domestic capability, and they could offer huge commercial opportunities for UK industry. The government already recognises the potential of small modular reactors. In November last year, we committed to investing at least £250 million in nuclear research and development. This includes a competition to identify the best value SMR design for the UK. Because SMR designs are at the early stages, the UK is in a strong position to leverage its considerable expertise across the nuclear supply chain to develop them. This will help to position the UK as a global leader in innovative nuclear technologies. During the budget, the Chancellor announced the launch of Phase 1 of a competitive process to identify which small modular reactor designs could best be delivered in the UK. This competition will include engagement with technology developers, utilities, potential investors, funders, and others interested in developing, commercialising and financing SMRs in the UK. In addition, and as part of our wider R&D programme, government will allocate up to £30 million over the next 5 years for an SMR-enabling advanced manufacturing programme to develop its skills capacity. And separately, the government commissioned a techno-economic assessment of SMRs, which is due to conclude very shortly. This will contribute to the evidence that helps government understand the potential long-term value that SMRs could contribute to our energy portfolio and, of course, to the success of the UK economy. I would seriously encourage any of you here today who would like to participate in Phase 1 of the competition to register your interest straight away. Now is the time. But our efforts in research and development go wider than just SMRs. The government is investing in an ambitious nuclear R&D programme, which is intended to revive the UK's nuclear expertise and position us as a global leader in innovative nuclear technologies. As we develop the details of the programme, we're listening to the advice and recommendations of the Nuclear Innovation and Research Advisory Board, known as NIRAB, as I'm sure you know, which has developed a programme of national nuclear R&D under the leadership of Dame Sue Iron, who is herself an expert advisor on the nuclear power industry. NIRAB's recommendations focus on 5 key themes. First, creating a strategic toolkit to help with future planning on nuclear R&D. Second, researching more efficient and tolerant fuels for future and current reactors. Third, developing a 21st century manufacturing capability to build the advanced and modular equipment of the future. Fourth, working towards SMRs and the 4th generation reactors of the future through advanced reactor design. And then 5th, recycling fuel to ensure a secure, cost-effective and sustainable future for advanced reactors. We'll be announcing the priority work streams for the first year of the wider programme soon, and we hope to announce the full 5-year programme later this year. So in closing, there's a lot to think about, a lot to talk about, but let me return to where I started. Questions about new nuclear are a part of a healthy conversation about this country's future energy makeup. The rationale for bringing forward new nuclear plant remains very strong, and we're working to build a secure, affordable and clean energy system with your help. The opportunities for UK businesses are already there and are growing fast, and the potential for the UK to be at the forefront of the next generation of nuclear is an opportunity that this government is determined to seize. Thank you very much.
So I think now we've got just a few minutes for some questions for Andrea on realising the vision of a new fleet of nuclear power stations. Open up to the floor. Any questions? I think we have one down the back there.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Andrea. A really interesting talk, and it's clear that you've got the overall vision and strategy for nuclear in terms of our UK approach quite clear. But what's missing for me now is what is the contingency plan if we don't get to FID with Hinkley C?
So I think you'll probably all be aware that this question came up at the Energy and Climate Change Scrutiny Committee just last week. And I think, as the Secretary of State made absolutely clear, we believe that the FID absolutely will go ahead. We've had total assurance on that. We are absolutely confident. But at the same time, we always have contingency plans for all eventualities. Energy security in the UK is absolutely non-negotiable. And as you'll be aware, as I've explained in my remarks, diversity is key to that. So having diverse range of sources that can be expanded as necessary is essential to that. So there's no chance that we will ever play with energy security in this country.
Okay, any more questions? We have one down the very back there. Difficult to see by being dazzled by this spotlight at the moment, but...
Thank you very much. You talked about setting up the R&D facilities and also the colleges to support nuclear new build and also nuclear of the future. The thing I'm really unclear about is, because of this hiatus, partially with Hinkley, and getting the trained workforce, how is that going to be funded? Because we're talking about thousands of workforce going to be required, certainly for Wilfa and Hinkley, and then we've got Sizewell coming on following that. So I'm a bit unclear at the moment. Is it the contractors that's expected to fund this, or is it going to be government funded? I'm totally unclear in that.
So the National College for Nuclear is receiving government grants. That's what the Chancellor announced. On the national colleges will have government funding. And as ever, it's a combination with skills training. It's a combination. So, for example, when I was down at EDF's Cannington Court, they are funding a huge programme of apprenticeships and skills training themselves. And government is contributing to that, as are the universities. There are lots of government bodies that already provide skills training. So there isn't a kind of an absolute answer, it's all government, it's all industry. It's a combination of those things. But I think the absolutely key point is there is a demand for increasing the level of skills training, and in particular for lowering the average age of the skilled nuclear workforce. So whether that's in, so for example, the Office for Nuclear Regulation, they have their own programme of training people. They like to see people switching between industry and regulator periodically so that they can see the nuclear sector from both sides of the coin. So I think that kind of skills transfer, but souping up our capability and our capacity is absolutely essential, and the government's certainly helping with the cost of that.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. Just in the centre here.
Yes, this is Joost van den Broek from Energy, the Netherlands. Thank you for this very clear presentation. What I was wondering, England is increasing their workforce and the skills with development programs, whereas other countries in Europe may decrease their new build or existing fleet, which makes a new workforce becoming available. How do you cope with this, or do you think about exchange programs with the different countries where, well, for instance, Germany, a workforce will become available the coming 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point. And, you know, I think all of European countries have the same issue that the UK has with an ageing workforce in nuclear. And so the need to build skills amongst younger people, getting university graduates and apprentices into the nuclear space is very important for the UK. But of course, as always, the UK is always on the lookout for talented, good, experienced people with good qualifications. And of course, there is the freedom to be able to have exchange programs and so on, as firms already do. As you'll be aware, EDF runs the UK's civil nuclear fleet as it is. And while I've visited a couple of those, and whilst predominantly the workforce is UK, there are also European and other nationals who work there. So the skills is absolutely a prerequisite. But also, the other thing I would say, the other side of the coin is, as Europe's ageing nuclear fleet come to decommissioning, what the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority in the UK has done is to develop world-leading expertise in decommissioning. So I think that's a big export opportunity for the UK too. So as well as the new build, we also have a lot of talent and expertise in the decommissioning.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for a very clear presentation, and I wish you a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you.